Hello there, people of the internet. I'm out here with a couple of revolvers today, as opposed to my usual military surplus semi-automatics that I run whenever I run handguns. I got a 38 special. This is a Smith & Wesson Airweight. This is their hammerless model, double action only. These are primarily for concealed carry purposes for those who insist on revolvers. And I got a Model 200 38 special made by Rock Island Armory. This right here is basically a copy of a Colt revolver. Now the reason I have these two out here is because I have been getting several questions, not just by new gun owners, but I've actually started talking to other creators as well. And one of the discussions I was having with one of the other creators was exactly this topic. I figured I'd go ahead and make a full video on it, talking about the pros and cons between getting yourself a snub-nose revolver, such as this one, or getting yourself some sort of full-length barrel revolver, well, longer barrel length revolver, such as the Rock Island Armory 38 Special here. There's pros and cons behind each of these, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Obviously, the shorter ones are going to be easier to conceal. They're a lot lighter weight. There's a lot less mass because you have a lot less barrel right there. As a result of having less barrel, though, you're also going to have less velocity. In revolvers, velocity due to barrel length is not quite as significant as it is in something that has a closed and locked chamber, simply because you lose a lot of your gas from the cylinder gap right here. That's what that's called. Every time you pull the trigger and a round goes off, the cylinder gap, which is the gap between the cylinder itself and the back of the barrel right here, the cylinder gap lets out a lot of the gas and you lose a lot of velocity from that cylinder gap. Not a significant amount, meaning you're not going to not be able to do damage to your target. But if you have yourself some sort of closed system as opposed to the cylinder gap right here, you're going to have a lot more velocity. Because this is not a closed system, you do lose some velocity from a shorter barrel, but it's not a significant amount with any kind of revolver system. So the barrel length is more or less for concealability. Having something with a far shorter barrel obviously is going to be a lot smaller than something with a far longer barrel like this 4-inch barrel on the Model 200. As a result, this right here will be very easy to stick into, you know, appendix carry and bend around and whatnot. Long barrel, you try bending, you're gonna get some barrel in places that you don't want barrel and go a little high-pitched voice every time you bend over. Oh, goodness. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin's making fun of me now. There's not a whole lot of difference in velocity between the two revolvers, but there is a significant amount of difference in ease of carry. I would say velocity is way more affected by the amount of cylinder gap that you have. My Smith & Wesson Airweight seems to have actually quite a deal more cylinder gap than my Model 200. The Model 200, I can't even, well, I guess I kind of can. I can barely see the gap in between the cylinder and the back of the barrel, whereas the 200, I can see very clearly right through it. I can see you guys very easily. Hear the bullfrogs in the background. The other biggest factor is sight radius. Whenever you have yourself a longer barrel and more sight radius, you're going to be more inherently accurate. Although revolvers like this and revolvers like this right here aren't exactly made for competition shooting. They're not going to be exceptionally accurate, especially out to longer distances. These are designed for personal defense, you know, out to like 7 yards. That's where you start to get your inherent accuracy. These can be accurate out beyond that if you have exceptional shooting skill, but most of your defensive encounters are going to be within 7 yards or so, and these right here, that is the ballpark that they were designed to play in. They're not going to go stacking, you know, one MOA at 100 yards. It's just not going to happen with these things. But if you have yourself, especially if you have yourself one with a longer sight radius and one that operates in single action, that's the term I'm looking for. You'll have to forgive me. My memory is not quite as good as it used to be ever since I had that stroke last year. But if you have yourself one that operates in single action, such as this hammered revolver, as opposed to this double action only hammerless revolver, combine that with a longer sight radius and you're going to get more inherent accuracy unless you have exceptional trigger discipline. I personally feel like if concealed carry was not a thing and we were still walking around with revolvers and, you know, firearms on our hips, on our backs, whatever it is that we decide to tote them around with, like they did back in the old Western days, I feel like snub-nosed revolvers would not really be a thing. They are lightweight, they are way more compact, but they're not significantly more than this right here. And in a holster, it would be, it wouldn't matter much. A holster that you were not concealing, it would not matter much. These right here are important for concealability. Now, I'm not really going to go into the differences between revolvers and semi-automatics, but I want to go ahead and say revolvers, if they are concealed, they can be fired from that concealed position, whereas semi-automatics, you get one shot, then your firearm's going to malfunction because there's nowhere for that spent casing to eject to. Just one of those things to bear in mind. All right, I don't think that there's anything else left for me to add here. So quick summary, lighter weight, easier to conceal, but the sight radius is not going to be as good. Inherent accuracy is not going to be as good. Single action, double action, that's a whole other topic for a whole other video, just because it has nothing to do with the actual barrel length. But of course, single action revolvers are going to be more accurate than your double action. The reason why double action only revolvers exist, especially on ones like this Smith & Wesson Airweight, which have no manual safety on it, is simply because the harder, much more heavier trigger pull on this thing is going to be your safety mechanism inside of your pocket, as opposed to a single action, very crisp, easy trigger pull. Alright, well, I have just a handful of 38 special rounds. I'm going to go ahead and make some B-roll footage for this video. Thanks for watching, folks. Hopefully this covered a little bit of what people were wanting me to cover. So, like I said, thanks for watching, folks. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Description down below has a link to all sorts of different things. Go ahead and go check that out. I'm going to make some B-roll footage, just kind of wander around, fire off these a couple of times. Like I said, I only have a couple of 38 special rounds left, so I'll have to really bide my ammunition with this. Thanks for watching, folks. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.